Ellie, you trying to make me cry today?
Always. So welcome to What's in Your Heart, a web series and a soft landing where we explore the heart space, what makes us feel alive, and it's an invitation for you to be exactly who you are, where you are. Today we have our beautiful guest, Dzidzor. Dzidzor is an African folklore performing artist, author, and entrepreneur. Dzidzor's style of call and response has reimagined poetry and storytelling as a way to include the audience in an experience to challenge, inspire, and encourage self beyond traditional forms. She began performing through slam poetry and now curates spaces, Black Cotton Club, and teaches in Boston. Born in Italy to Ghanaian parents and raised in North Carolina, she immersed herself in merging cultures from the South to Ghanaian culture. She is a vessel chosen to deliver a message through writing, performance, and community organizing. Her debut poetry collection, For Girls Who Cry in Yellow, explores the healing process through the perspective of an African woman. Dzidzor has been nominated twice for a Boston Music Awards, and her debut EP, entitled Bushwoman, was released on April 10, 2020. Being a woman of many talents, she is also one of the people who inspires me every day to follow my creativity and gives me the courage to imagine more for myself and my communities. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Such a beautiful introduction. Thank you for inviting me to be here.
Yes. So before we get started, I wanted to ask you if you have any grounding practices that you want to invite into the space just to get us to be present in here, whether it's meditation, prayer, whatever you want it to be. You're welcome to do that.
Yeah, I would love that. Thank you for inviting me to do that. I think this, okay. So a grounding practice would be to just sit in stillness, which is so hard for me. So I invite you and the listeners to kind of have your feet planted on the floor. And then just kind of sit and listen. And so if there's anything in your hand, just kind of putting that to the side. And just listen to the noise that's around you. I think for meditation, a lot of people think that everything must be silent, but truthfully, it just means that you have to be silent and everything in the world can operate as just as it is, and you be silent and listen. And so just listen to the sound around you, whether it be heat blowing in the vent or cars going by your house, or even the sound of my voice. And then at some point, I know it becomes the background, but just listen. I also invite you to take deep breaths in through your nose and releasing them through your mouth, thinking about the things that you need to inhale in order to show up for yourself this week. So whether that be patience or love or kindness to yourself, imagining yourself inhaling those things when you do inhale through your nose, and then when you release the breath through your mouth, thinking of things that you know hinder you from or limit you from showing up for yourself, whether it be guilt or doubt. And so we'll do that 3 times just to start off. So 1, 2, 3, inhale through your nose. 1, 2, 3, release through your mouth. Do it again. 1, 2, 3, inhale through your nose. 1, 2, 3, release through your mouth. And when you are ready, just open your eyes.
That was so beautiful. Thank you. So, what were some of the things that you had to inhale to get you through the week, and what did you have to release?
Yeah. I'll start with the release because that's more easier to point out. I have been dealing, or rather, being aware of my operation out of guilt lately. And so this past week, I've been just kind of away in a cabin and just sitting with myself and sitting with God. And luckily, I also had a therapist appointment around the same time that I was away as well, which also helped a lot. But I've recognized that I've operated out of guilt. And so that's one of the things that I'm learning to release, is just this operation out of guilt for whatever situation, that has brought me up to this point. Learning to release doubt, or, the distrust in my own wisdom, learning to release that because Lord knows, I know I'm tired of asking for people to validate me, as much as I know people are like, yo, you're dope. I don't know why you need me to approve that, but here I go. Something that I need to release, I think, grace upon myself. And that's something that every season teaches me. There's a different level of grace that I need to offer to myself. And so I'm very grateful for those lessons. And then kindness to myself. Just being kind. I think I've operated so much out of like, girl, you need to get it together. Or girl, you're not on your joint, and I think I'm learning, just as much as I'm learning discipline, I'm also learning kindness to myself and being kind to myself in the moments in which I don't show up for myself as much as I want to. So yeah.
I love that for you.
What about you? I know this is my interview, but I want to know.
For me, when you brought that up, I was inhaling confidence because I'm moving into a different space with my work, like literally started a business. So having to have that confidence to know that I started this with the foundation of all the skills that I have and what I bring to the table, to just really having confidence to show up in those spaces, and even showing up and doing this web series because it's called What's in Your Heart. Literally, this is always in my heart. Like, I want to have conversations with people. I want to cultivate a space of like tenderness in this world that can be just so violent. Just offering something different and stripping away all of that and welcoming more just connection, genuine connections, and space to explore all these different things. But it does take confidence to do it because I can pinpick every little thing, and it might not be perfect, but I think just being present and showing up is what's important.
Yeah.
But with that, I had to release fear of judgment because I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. Sometimes I'm not even my own cup of tea, but it is what it is. Every moment I change, I evolve. So all I can do is answer the call and release everything else.
Yeah. I hear that. I so hear that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, thank you for asking.
Walking into this boldness.
One of the questions that I had for you, kind of similar to what you said in going to the cabin and just sitting with God, what has been coming up for you lately in your relationship with God, or what has it been teaching you?
Wow. This isn't fully processed. I guess that's also one of the things that God has been showing me about myself too. We'll get to that probably, maybe. Lately, I think that I have been unlearning how I view who God is. I grew up in an African Pentecostal church, and also was involved in a Baptist church as well, a Southern Baptist church as well, with my godparents. And often I think that the way that God was taught to us was that there is this man who looks at everything like this. And so that could mean like he's looking at everything with detail. And then he's also like very has scorn on his face and just waiting for you to mess up so he could just point his little finger at you and be like, this is not what I told you to do. And rarely did I ever hear about the love of God. And so most times when God was taught, it was, well, you need to be on the right path so you could get that car, so you can get that opportunity. And if something bad happened to you, you didn't listen to God. It was your fault. You didn't listen to God, and you was being out here careless and da 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 da. And I think what I'm learning, or rather what I'm walking into, is that, whoa, we've attached our own personality on who God is. And so God has been really dealing with me and letting me know that, like, or rather the messages that I've been getting or receiving or listening to has been, I'm not a God that operates off of what you can do for me. I'm a God that loves you regardless. That even those times where I tell you what to do and you don't listen, my arms are still open. And I'm not this oppressive God that is waiting for you to do wrong so I could flood you. Like, that's not how I operate. Now, there are moments in which you will feel my wrath, but that's not how I operate. And I really feel like in my own prayer life, because I've always went to God and been like, all right, God, I know I'm sorry I did this or this. Thank you for this. Okay, but can you give me this. And I feel so guilty sometimes. I'm like, God ain't Santa Claus, like, it ain't like I got to do something to do this. And revisited a verse that I love, which is be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And after that line, it says, but then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. And I was like, why didn't I never pay attention to this part? So if I'm constantly being transformed by my mind and the renewing of this mind that I have, then I'll be able to test and approve. So test, right? So test something that God has presented in front of me, and also approve. So for me, what I hear is God has given me the choice to choose. Like, I get to choose, like, God is not this oppressive that waits to see if we do right or wrong. Generally, is just kind of like, listen, I don't want to cause you harm, daughter, and I don't want you to cause yourself harm either. But if you choose to do that harm, I'm still going to have my hands open, my arms open, waiting for you to just come in the midst of my arms. Like, I'm not going to punish you for you doing wrong.
Right.
And so I think I'm in that season in which I'm learning just about the love of God, and also learning about the harm that I've caused myself, the harm that has been passed down out of survival, and unlearning that, and learning that I do have the power to choose, and I can walk in this abundance of freedom, and also in this abundance of love and overwhelming and overflowing love of God.
Whoa. Whew. A whole word. Yes.
Thank you. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. I think it is really interesting that what you said, how we projected ourselves onto God and how there were those things that were passed down to us. But when you realize, like, God already planned for all this love and abundance for you, and all you have to do is accept it, it's like, oh. Yeah, I was talking to one of my friends. I just needed advice, or I needed to hear from somebody who would understand about grace, because I'm just in this period of my life where I'm kind of like making amendments. And I was like really scared to, because I felt like this thing had a grip on me for so long. But then my friend was like, well, God already planned grace for you, so you just need to give that to yourself. Like, sir, you're being so loud.
That's so real. I remember it was a friend of mine and I, in connection to that, a friend of mine and I, we were talking, and we were so inspired by Nina Simone's Boldness. And knowing that she had to be for her own protection for herself, but we were so inspired by just her spirit of her boldness. And we were just like, God, like, we really want the spirit of boldness and da 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 da. And I remember I was in the shower one day and God was like, you keep asking me for this boldness thing, but I didn't give you the spirit of fear. And I'm like, ooh, okay, you ain't have to hit me like that. Ooh, all right. you know, like, I get it.
Okay.
So yeah, that's real. And I think we've all been equipped with so much. One of my favorite verses, or rather messages that I keep hearing often, is just like, God has placed his kingdom within you. Out of all the places God could have placed a kingdom, God placed it in you.
Ooh.
That's how the sentence goes in the Bible. God placed it in you.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, so I have this power of peace. I have this power of grace. I have this power of love. I have this power of wisdom. I just choose not to, based on traumas, survival, I understand. I'm still struggling with as well. I just choose not to tap into that. I choose not to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but it's very real. And also similar or along the lines of what you said about God not waiting for us to, make mistakes or mess up and punish us. Like, he already knows that we're gonna mess up.
And
just process. Kind of pivoting to the next question that I had, because you are talking about like your calling and what was placed in you. Do you have a moment or like a period of your life where you knew you had to answer the call and to like follow your creativity and to follow your heart? And what was that process like?
Ask me the question again.
So it's like, when was the moment or, the turning point for you when you knew you had to answer the call? Because that's coming from a place of knowing where you were before, where you were like unhappy with working, like a job full time and just like doing creativity on the side, and then watching your work like bloom so much. Was that like a period of your life, or were there like moments that led up to that made you feel like you couldn't ignore it anymore?
I don't know if I've ever had a moment, if I'm being completely honest, in which I've never felt like I've not answered the call. Yeah, I don't know if there was a moment for me. I think there have been several moments that has led me to the next step. So, with the example that you shared of me leaving my job, I needed to do that for the year that I had. Although I didn't see it clearly until this day, I'm still trying to find clarity on it, on what that looks like for me in my work. But when I was younger, I remember the story very vaguely. When I was younger, I remember my 5th grade class, I had wrote a letter to my teacher. She had asked us to write a story or something. And I remember she had just got married. And I had wrote a letter to my teacher and talking about love. I was talking about God's love because at the time, I think that's the only recollection of love that I knew. And I was telling her about God's love and how beautiful it is to find that love and share it with someone. And I was writing from a kid's perspective. So, you hear what your parents hear, you hear what you hear at church. And I just remember giving it to her. And then she wrote a note to me and she said, "This is the most beautiful thing that I have ever read." And she was like, she cried when she read the letter. I remember in that moment being like, whoa, words can do that to people, make them cry. And then there are other moments where I've encountered adult mentors who have affirmed me in that way that I never, I guess, paid attention to until, now that I can look back and see like, whoa, like those were all kind of messages or apostles kind of like planting seeds within me without me even recollecting and knowing. Because at the time I was a very shy kid. I guess the moving moment would be when my mother took me to an open mic that I really wanted to go to. And she signed me up for the slam. And I was like, "Mommy, I didn't want to sign up." And she said, you think I drove from the house to here to come and sit beside you, to come and watch? No, I came to watch you, And I couldn't move. At that moment, I was like, I either have to go perform or I'm going home, because I knew my mother didn't just waste time to go to open mics. That wasn't the thing that she did. And so And she didn't even know open mics existed. So for her to even do that, I think it's pretty abnormal for an African parent at the time. And so I won 4th place. And my mother, I just remember being like, my mother pushed me, you know? My mother really pushed me, and I didn't have no room to say no. I just kind of had to answer the call. And I don't know if that answers the question, but those are the moments that I think about that kind of like led me to this purpose or this calling.
Yeah. That makes sense. I just wanted to take a peek inside of kind of what that process has been like for you, because I feel like you might not see it, but whenever I see you, or, you know, every time that we catch up, I feel like you just grow exponentially. So I wanted to take a look into that process and see like what in your heart makes you feel like I can't keep ignoring this thing that's inside of me.
Okay. Yo, freedom. I'm just looking at this word right here, freedom. I guess I always say that I have been like, I think that my calling is to create a space for people to tell their stories, whether it's at my performance or you're coming to watch me. And I say this after me. Okay, now say it like you mean it. Okay, now say it to a stranger. And it's probably different emotions each time. I think for me, I don't know, I want to feel this freedom, and I want to be seen and heard so much that I want others to be seen and heard. And maybe that's what moves me to perform and to grow, because I'm like, yo, this story needs to be shared. I tell my young people all the time, like, yo, you need to share your story. You might think that it's not as successful or great as someone else's, or even like worse, because there's like this competing trauma thing, but like, it needs to be shared. And I think I desperately want to be seen and heard so much that it drives me. And I think God is also calling me and letting me know, like, yo, I see you and I hear you. And that's all you need, you know? And you know, and there are times where I fight it. And there are times where I'm like, yeah, it's true. Like, all I need to be seen and heard is by God, you know?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Can you walk us through one of your affirmations? Or like
Sure. The process of creating it, or just saying it?
Just doing it. Fun little exercise for me, but also the audience.
Sure. I heard this word from this Liberate app. And it was a meditation on understanding the body. And so it was just like sitting within the body and just breathing. One of the things she said is, may you be like nature and unfurl without permission. And so I think, yeah, may you be like nature to unfurl without permission or fear. You ready?
I'm ready.
May I be like nature.
May I be like nature.
To unfurl.
To unfurl.
Without permission.
Without permission.
Or fear.
Or fear. Let's go. Ready.
Yeah.
So on the topic of freedom, I know that part of the mission behind your work is for people to embody freedom within their own bodies, their minds, their souls, and their voice. So what did that look like for you?
Yeah, that looks like laying my bed every morning, because that's discipline. Looks like dancing before I turn on a computer, before I check my text messages for a phone or get on a conversation with someone. I dance. Whether it's to house music or to gospel or to shout music, I just dance with no like structure on movement, just moving my body. It looks like practicing how to constantly speak my mind, and to say things sometimes not performance based. Because I can get into the structure of, oh no, it needs to be rehearsed, or it needs to be performed. It needs to be a performance. And sometimes it's just about saying something. It's also practicing silence as well, in my own solitude and listening. It's cooking the food that I love, food that nourishes my body, that pours into my body. It's talking to my mother, and my father, and praying with them. It's prayer and exercising the relationship that I have with God, and the relationship that I have with God, and say that again, and the relationship I have with God, And it's being. I think that's an important part of it too. Instead of doing things all the time, it's just practically being like, yo, I'm just gonna be for a second. Is that all right? And then just bask in who you are, and not what you want to do or who you need to be, but just in who you are. And then it's also resting. And I don't mean sleeping. I mean just sitting and doing completely nothing, and maybe watching God's nature, just at its task and doing what it does, or just sitting and just being in admiration of what's around you. And once again, in who you are.
Yeah, I love that.
That's freedom.
Yes, I love that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I hope whoever was watching, you go back, you take some notes, you start thinking about what freedom looks like for you, what makes you feel alive, what makes you feel full in your being. Because I love that all the things you mentioned, it wasn't centered around like what you do or what value you provide or what productivity looks like, but all those really like simple things we can do to cultivate joy and in our lives every single day. So last question, what do you feel like your heart has been calling for lately?
Whoo! Ellie, you trying to make me cry today?
Always.
I think that my heart is calling me to be authentic, which may sound like, dang, have you been fake all this time? And it's like, no, it's just, I think I have a way of making myself feel like things has to be prepared to share, or it has to be polished to share, or it has to be a prettier version or aesthetic version to share, or to show. And I think that my heart has been dealing with my guilt so that I don't operate out of that place anymore, out of a performance-based personality or performance-based, like, I don't even know how to explain it, because it's not fully processed, if I'm being completely honest, but I really think my heart has been calling me to release the guilt and just be authentic with myself and others, and to be, those are the three things: be authentic, release the guilt, and to be.
Well, may you be like nature and unfurl
without permission or fear.
Yes. Because, like you said, it's not that you haven't been fake or that you have been fake all this time, but you're constantly unfurling and
yes. Thank you for that.
I think that you're going
through. Yeah, I agree. Which is why I was like, it's not that I have been fake or haven't been authentic before. I just think that there's a different level of authenticity that this level requires, that isn't in the structure of how I had it before. And so that's what this new season requires of me. That's what this my heart is now telling me to speak from.
Well, thank you for letting us into your heart today and sharing all that you have in this space. Before we go, do you have anything you want to plug?
I guess listen to Bushwoman, the 15-minute meditation. My new website's coming soon, so I'm really excited about that. And then just listen to my new project and follow me.
Where can people follow you or listen to your music?
On YouTube, I'm Dzidzor. On Instagram, I'm Dzidzor Zaglo. And on Facebook, you could also follow like events and stuff.
All right, beautiful people and beautiful person in front of me. I hope you all have a wonderful day and thank you for tuning in.
Yay.